Hello and welcome to the SurveYOUR podcast with James Baker and Jon Lever. Two chartered surveyors embarking upon a social media journey, locked in a virtual room with nothing better to do than to discuss everything surveying. And some things not.
Hi everyone, welcome to our latest episode of the SurveYOUR podcast. We've got quite a lot of guests with us today, but before we launch into that, I'll hand over to Jon for a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, we had a feedback. I've got to go and find it now, and it's one of the people in the room with us as well, so we could ask them to actually give us some. So it's from Debbie. Thanks, Debbie, for your feedback. She said, a great podcast, very knowledgeable presenters. She must have been talking about me, James. Makes for easy, comical listening. That must be you, James. I liken Jon and James to Jerry Clarkson, and I'm assuming that was Carl Pilkington. But I'm not entirely sure which is which. So we've gone with me as Clarkson and James as Carl.
That's what Jon's gone with. I mean, I did tell him he's the miserable one, but...
No worries, but thanks for your feedback. And as always, we always remind people to feedback. Drop on to survepod.com, survepod.com, and give us your feedback and tell us what you think. And if there's any other topics that we can cover, then we'll certainly listen to suggestions. And we've had some really good suggestions. And I'm just going to mention in this podcast about last podcast, episode 15, which was absolutely fantastic, and that was someone's suggestion where we got to meet with Natasha and with Dan. So if you guys haven't listened to that, really inspiring and a bit of fun as well. My favourite story about burglarising his brother, bless him. That was absolutely cracking. So that was just to kind of throw that out there as well, that we've had some fantastic suggestions, and this one is a great opportunity to come and see what you guys are up to. So, James, do you want to kind of lead into this, and we'll hassle Sam a bit, and then we can open up our questions?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, we've got Sammy Nic with us today, which is going to stick. So, we've joined Sam's study group. This is APC Study Group. Do you want to? We've mentioned it in some of the podcasts, Sam, but it's probably worth you just briefing the listeners on what the study group is.
Yeah, so we've got a range of people from different pathways that are part of a WhatsApp group and our Zoom call study group, which is soon to be on Zoom and Teams, so we can get some practice on Teams. But we meet at least twice a week on a Tuesday and a Thursday. Tuesday, we discuss mandatory competencies, so that's a bit more open to people who aren't specific pathways. Then a Thursday, we discuss technical competencies to building surveying. We normally do about an hour and a half, and everybody turns up with 5 questions and answers and asks them to the group, which prompts discussion on guidance notes, on hot topics, on anything that's out there at the moment. So that's the brief description of it.
Thanks, Sam. Jon, do you want to start with firing some questions out?
Yeah, okay. What gave you guys, was it just your idea, Sam, for setting up the group, or was it a group thing, or two of you said, hey, we ought to have a group? What kind of came up with the idea for the group?
I can't quite remember how it began. I don't think it was just myself. It was part of the Wednesday workouts, and I was going to those, but I work for a small practice where there's just myself and nobody else that's studying to become chartered. So I needed somebody to bounce ideas off. And I think in the early stages, there was myself, Alan, a guy called Tom, who's passed and disappeared, Stephen, Max, Avinda wasn't far behind.
Yeah.
Alan, anyone to add?
Yeah. Just to add to that, really, I think we were all thrown into the same boat at once. When the pandemic hit last year and the first lockdown, we all found ourselves working from home. And just as Sam says, in my organisation, I was the only candidate in my position doing the APC, and I'd been to 3 or 4 of Jon's roadshows and found it a fantastic opportunity to actually start to network and meet people in a similar position to myself. And as Sam says, that's when we started to sort of form a small group that has since expanded, and it's been fantastic. But I have to say, it all started with Jon. If I hadn't attended the roadshows, I wouldn't be here now. So thank you, Jon.
Listen to that, James. All right, listen, it was all my idea.
Yeah.
I heard that as well, John.
Fantastic. The only reason we've come to podcast this is because it was my idea. Fantastic. No, I won't take any credit for it.
I'm not trying to score brownie points, John, but
not at all. No, it's great.
John shouldn't take any credit for it either, because
it's a bit strange to say that actually the pandemic actually it worked to our advantage, because I understand that John was actually, undertaking the road shows in person prior to the pandemic, and then he switched to online, I know that if the pandemic hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been able to network as much as I have been able to, and it's been good in that respect.
It's really interesting that as well, because just picking up on that, exactly that point, we were taking the road shows around the country, as it were, just sort of, trying to meet up, and it was only going to be once or twice a month and everything, and then we committed to saying, well, actually, let's just do this weekly, because I part of my reason for the road shows was just I felt that everyone's going to start feeling a little bit lonely, and there are a lot of people on furlough and stuff like that, and if we could do something that was practically free, then it would be a great opportunity. To tell the truth, the pandemic's been great for us as a business, because it's brought you all kicking and screaming to where we've been for the last 10 years, because we've been online. But the systems we were using up to 12 months ago were really clunky. So now Zoom and Teams, well, we prefer Zoom, but Zoom's come around. It's revolutionized kind of the way we do things as well. So I mean, I'm not going to take credit for this at all. It's all down to you guys, because I always say, these things are only as good as the people who get involved in them, and I think you've done a great job. So
I think it was a starting point whereby we could then all start to network. Because we're all, as I keep saying, we're all in the same boat, and it was definitely a starting point. I mean, it wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if we hadn't have been put in the situation that we found ourselves in back in March of last year.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard of study groups in the past where people will have a conference call, or where they've, older system online sort of media systems you might have had in offices that cost thousands of pounds that you could talk to each other on, or just meeting up in a pub once a month or something. So this absolutely as a medium has worked perfectly. So no, that's really good. That's cool. Excellent. James, over to you, mate.
Are you going to let me talk? I was waiting for that.
Well, no, I just feel I have to, though.
Well, yeah, you do, unfortunately.
I don't get upset. He's like my wife. If you don't do anything now, as soon as we stop recording, you all go. It's like this. I'm here all the time.
No, I just leave as well. That's what he means.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, you've already kind of answered some of it, Sam, but I'm assuming that you're all scattered across the country. You're not kind of all in one location.
Yeah.
Yes. I think Alan's down in Cambridge. Max is London. Kunal's London. Kat's up in Edinburgh. I'm in Newcastle. Stephen's London. Who have I missed off? I'm not. Debbie, where are you? Whereabouts are you? Oh, mute.
I'm Castle Donington, which is near Derby.
Just down the road from me, Debbie.
That's
all spread across.
Yeah, being able to all get together from everywhere. So
yeah, I mean that's great though, isn't it? And you've, I mean, all of you probably wouldn't have really met, would you, before COVID and before the use of Zoom?
No, we wouldn't.
Nope.
John, do you want, I'm just going to carry on talking. Actually, John,
yeah.
You never wait for permission anyway. So, I guess obviously you're all at different stages of your APC journey, but it'd be interesting to hear anybody's thoughts on any concerns they might have about the APC.
It's the techniques for answering. Obviously, knowing the question first and the answer, but it's a technique and keeping it succinct and to the point. For me, that's my main concern.
And have you done a lot of Q&A practice in the group then? Is that what you kind of come together and do?
I've done lots of Q&A practice in the group, but it still needs quite a bit of development, I think, from my point of view. Understanding the question and know the answer, but it's been asked the right questions, isn't it, really? Because that would, you're going to be asked, I believe, 100, 120 questions.
Yeah, on average. Yeah, about 80 to 100.
What I'll just add to that is initially when we started doing the Q&A sessions, we were really just sort of asking questions to level 1 on the mandatory and the core competencies.
Mm.
And, I can't remember who it was. Somebody actually came up with a suggestion. It would be better to actually simulate assessors asking questions from our summary of experience to level 3.
Yep.
Because let's be honest, that's what we're going to get assessed on. And
Yep.
so what we've actually been doing is sending each other our summary of experiences.
Oh, cool.
And 1 week we may ask questions on contract administration. The next week we may ask questions on building pathology. And it's actually worked very well. Personally, I found that very effective. And but we're still carrying on with the level 1 Q&A sessions.
Yeah.
But stepping up to level 3 has worked wonders.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, the assessors are trained to challenge you at level 3. Not all of them do, but that is really where they should be pitching in to start with. Because to tell the truth, we can hear level 1 and level 2 come through a level 3 answer. So I think that's very wise. But yeah, your knowledge base is one of those things that I guess over the time you've all been involved, I'm sure there's been more and more things coming up because there's always new stuff that comes out all the time. So that's been, I'm sure, very helpful. And again, having a collection of you with all different experience and different sort of walks of life as well, and sort of thought processes, I'm sure has been really beneficial. So, okay, so questioning technique, great. That sounds, this is a brilliant forum. And I guess the other, point of all of this is really us being able to throw this at other people to say, why aren't you setting up your own groups, because it just takes that bit of initiative. It doesn't actually cost anything really, does it? Because you can, Zoom, even if you collected together and paid £1 each or something, it's only 11 quid a month. So, for a proper professional version. So it really doesn't cost anything to do. What other things? So we've had questioning technique. What other things are sort of challenges?
I was initially concerned about having the ability to practice my presentation in whatever form it was going to be. So when I first enrolled, it was pre-lockdown, so it was going to be face-to-face, or my interpretation, it was going to be face-to-face, which is then changed to Teams now. Mm-hmm. And as we previously mentioned, we use Zoom in this scenario, but we're going to try and use Teams. And Kunal practiced his presentation last week, so we're trying to get up to speed with practicing our presentations as well, which was something that was high up on my list of priorities.
Yeah, and in practicing I'm going to pick on you for a minute, Kunal, if I may. In practicing your presentation, what kind of came out of that? What did you learn from doing it, apart from the nerves of presenting to people?
That was actually the first time I actually presented my presentation and the first time I practiced it. So I literally just finished typing it up half an hour before before I was due to come on. Yeah. And but I think the biggest things I learned was because I'm typing the presentation, I didn't realize it was so wordy on the screen, and because I was concentrating on the text in the notes rather than on the screen. And then the feedback I got was that there is a bit too much text, and then also that my microphone on my laptop isn't great, and I needed to potentially upgrade that. Mm-hmm. Those are the biggest things I learned.
Yeah, and I mean, that's fantastic. When are you actually sitting, just out of interest? Do you sit in this session or next session?
I'm hoping to be sitting in June. I submitted on the 29th of March or whenever it was. So I'm just, I don't know, did the RICS say, okay, yeah, we've looked at your documents and we're going to proceed with letting you sit, or did they say no?
Submitted, you're sitting. Yeah, they don't look at your documents, so they leave that to the assessors. So yeah, if you've submitted your documents successfully and they've said thanks, we've received your documents, you're going to be sitting. So they'll generally let you know 3 weeks before, whichever date. Yeah, so that's what they generally do. But I mean that's fantastic, because we talk to a lot of candidates who, you're not sitting till June, and we're only just at the beginning of April really. So you're already 2 months ahead of yourself. Most candidates will be thinking about writing their presentation the week before, and maybe even like you said, you'd written it half an hour before you meant to deliver it. Well, I'll tell you now, there are some candidates out there who'll be writing it the day or two before the real deal assessment. And how mad is that? And yet you already found out a couple of the challenges, which are already, which you're 2 months ahead of the game. So that's a fantastic opportunity.
It's because I learned from the issues I faced writing my summary of experiences and stuff. So I started that in, I think like November, December time. I started writing that up, and then I was freaking out because I thought that my assessment was in March, not my submission was in March. So I was freaking out about that. And then I spoke to one of my colleagues, and he was like, no, it's not until July or June. So then that alleviated that. But then the biggest thing I learned was that how quick time really just creeps up by, like, because December, January, I think I'd redrafted my summary of experiences and case study about 6 or 7 times. And I just didn't realize I'd be editing it that much. So I learned from that, and I was like, okay, let me get my presentation sorted now, because I bet you I'm going to be changing that at least 2 or 3 times.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure. It's interesting all the things you say are all the things I constantly say on our roadshow, and I'm sure people don't always listen, and then they all of a sudden they go, oh no, it's really like that, it's a nightmare. So yes, that's no different to 26 years ago when I sat the APC. It was still the same. The time just whistles by, and before you know, and I did a 3-year route then, because I was thicker than you lot, and it just whistled by. Before you know it, you're sat in front of the panel going, whoa, okay, this is real. So, yeah, cool. James, I feel you've not said anything.
You're doing all the talking again and not allowing me to speak. Yeah. It's just normal, John. I'm used to it now. I've known you for enough years. So, conscious that we don't want to stick around too long and interrupt your study group, we'll kind of come on to last question, really. And I wondered if any of you got any top tips that you want to pass on.
Is that in general, James, or about the APC?
Well, about the APC, John.
Okay, I just thought
the APC Study Group, but
found this brilliant sort of spinach.
I mean, random top tips might be fun, if anybody fancies it. But we'll keep it APC. But if somebody's got something interesting to say, just say it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Anyone got top tips about? I guess about the group again, about what you're doing here, or just general what you found works well for you with the APC? Yeah.
These, sort of question and answer groups have been really helpful. And then what I've been doing is when I've been doing my own private study, I've been recording myself asking questions on like a little notepad thing on my phone. And then when I'm in my car and I'm driving, I then just play it. And then after each question, I then just pause it, say the answer, and then keep going like that. And that's been really helpful as well. It just gets you used to someone asking a question, even though it's yourself, and then just almost a bit more under pressure, then it gives you more chance to answer the question and word it properly without the pressure of an interview. So yeah, that's quite a good little
that's tip. Really clever idea. And we hear a lot of people actually present and record their presentation and then play that back to themselves as well. And one of the things we've suggested in the past as well is a PDF audio reader that reads PDFs. So you can use that. So anything, I agree with you, anything where you're traveling or you kind of, you've got that brain power isn't necessarily being used massively, then those opportunities to sort of listen and sort of commit it to memory and stuff is fantastic idea. I think that's really good. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, okay. Any other tips?
Debbie's got one.
Oh, hi, Debbie. Sorry.
No, today I've been going through a colleague's some experience who's going through the ASOC route, and just going through that summary of experience made me realise I actually know a bit more than I thought I knew originally. So it was quite useful. You obviously learn more when you're going through somebody else's work and advising them in a way, don't you? So that was a help. It was a help to me today.
Oh, okay, that's cool. I tell you now, I remember my assessment 26 years ago vividly, and I amazed myself how much the grey matter kind of kicked in and the other percentage of your brain that allegedly you don't use, given the preparation. I mean, I practiced. I spent 6 months getting ready for it and 10 days off before. I just needed that because I'm not an academic in any way, shape or form. So, it amazed me actually how much you do take on board. And I think you've also got to bear in mind, the APC is not just sitting that assessment, it's about making you a better surveyor. You walk out of there going, my goodness, all that stuff I now know, that if you hadn't done the APC, you wouldn't have known. And that'll carry you through, for a lot more, for your career and that mindset of learning and developing. So it's a bit more than just an assessment. And I think that's a really good positive as well, that it just makes you a better surveyor. And if you know your stuff and you've done enough prep, you should actually have quite a good time at the assessment. I know that sounds a bit weird, but you know, because it's you are well prepared for it. So no, that's cool.
Surely nobody comes out of the assessment saying, I really enjoyed that. That's never happened.
I did.
No.
I did.
That's why John does APC training, because he just loves it.
Yeah. I walked out of there going, I didn't know whether I passed or not, but I walked out there on a high going, I really enjoyed that because it was talking about me for an hour.
There we go. That's the...
we all know Anne, which he loves talking about.
But no, seriously, I did walk out of there really enjoying myself, and I found it really really good. So that was cool. Cool. Okay, I've just had a thing pop up on screen actually, so saying that we've got 10 minutes left of recording, but I don't think, is there any last bits? Anything you guys wanna chip in, because you know, we don't want to keep you from your revision session.
We can finish by saying, if anybody listening does want to join the group, that you can find me on LinkedIn or speak to yourself, John, and send the details across. And then anybody's more than welcome to join the group. It's not an exclusive club at all. We're all here to help each other.
We had a question on our WhatsApp group chat about
clients' money.
Clients paying you money up front. I was just wondering if we could just run it by you to see, because from what I understand, it was a level 1 question, but we couldn't agree on an answer.
So what was the question?
Which advice would you give to a client who would like to pay for your fees in advance?
No idea. No, I do know the answer to that one. You've got to be very careful with this, because a lot of people think it's client's money that's being given to you. But if you read the client's money guidance, client's money is money that you are going to go and acquire on behalf of your client. So when you're taking rent on behalf of your client, or that's generally it, actually collecting rent, and then you're managing the client's portfolio, and that might come back in sort of service charges and things like that. So that's client's money where you're taking that. It does expressly say in the guidance, last time I read it, and I'd have to go and pick it again just to make sure, but it does expressly suggest and state that any money given to you in advance for fees is not included as client's money. Okay, so that's your answer.
Yep. Thanks.
So go and check the guidance, but last time I read it, which was about 3 months ago, that's what it said. So yeah, because that was quite interesting, because we used to, in QSing, building surveying, client's money is not really something we do. It's more for our commercial resi sort of colleagues. But yeah, we used to always go, oh, but you know, if you took money from a client up front because they're going on holiday or going on business for a few months, you're going to run it and draw it down, put it in a separate account. No, that's not classed as it. So that example or scenario is now dead in the water, basically. So yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So shall we call it a day there, just to sort of finish off? I think.
Yeah, let's wrap it up there.
Yeah.
And then...
Thank you from me and James for letting us kind of impose.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
A bit about what you guys are up to. Fantastic initiative. I think you're doing a cracking job. And hopefully, once you've passed, maybe you'll stay on and help out others who are coming forward, you know, and sort of do something similar, because I think it's a really good opportunity to good network as well, and you know, to see other people coming up through the ranks. And dare I say, those friendships that you're making here and now, you're going to be the directors and partners and CEOs of the future, and you're going to have that connection, because that's kind of where James and I sort of met. I mean, naturally, James, you know, he's only a player, but you know,
not quite, but yeah,
he's his own director now. He's only.
I think you're outnumbered here, John. There's more building surveyors than anyone else.
Doesn't make any difference.
Who knows? When we've all passed, we can all hopefully meet each other in person for the first time, because at the moment we only know each other virtually.
I know that would be a lovely thing to do, wouldn't it? And but you know, I do profoundly believe, you know, I got involved with Matrix and that sort of network 30 years ago, and James and I are members of various groups and clubs and things, and we're brushing shoulders with directors, CEOs, presidents of the institution, you know, all of these sort of things, and that's what it is at the end of the day. It's who you know, and those connections you make now. So I think that's fantastic. As always, in good. Do you guys know how we normally finish our podcast? Just to go see if anyone's paid any attention. It's like, was it wash your hands, wash your face, and
Don't lick
Don't
any
lick any
strangers.
strangers.
Excellent. I'm delighted that that's carrying on through. If anything else, that's all it needs is for people to remember that line, and we'll be happy. Thanks ever so much, guys, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for letting us come along, guys.
Yeah, cheers. Hello there, and thank you for joining us for our latest episode of the SurveYOUR podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed making it. Don't forget to subscribe at all your favourite podcast providers, Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio and so on. Also on Twitter and Instagram at SurvePod, that's SurvePod. You can also get us on YouTube, click the subscribe button and don't forget to click the little bell, it tells you when we post our latest content, and on our webpage survepod.com. Don't forget to leave us your reviews, comments, suggestions, and of course, any questions. And finally, if you want to come along, join us at a future episode of the SurveYOUR podcast, send us an email to survepod@gmail.com. If you like what you see and hear, tell your friends, let's put surveying on the map. Stay safe, wash your hands, and don't lick any strangers. Bye-bye for now. The SurveYOUR podcast is a copyright Deliver and Invise Limited production. We suggest you come up with your own ideas and not copy ours. Thank you. Catch you again soon. Bye-bye.